Hope all of you had an extremely merry, happy, lovely, American, classic Christmas. What is going on, my Lemon Nation? Today we're going to be discussing the top 10 best horror films in my particular order. These particular horror films are more to my taste and what I truly like as a film lover and a filmmaker, and just, you know, the continuously spreading the idea of, you know, different thoughts of different films that just have different experience like oriented shit. My experience throughout all of these different movies have given me so much more clarity on what it's like to actually create a horror film in a specific genre. But with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So to start with my number 10, we have Dream Scenario. Dream Scenario is definitely one of those movies that really caught me off guard when it came to the comedic aspect, as well as the horrific elevated side that we're getting from A24 nowadays. So Nicolas Cage in this film is truly one of the GOATs, you know, he's the main person that you just really focus on the entire movie. Of course, his whole entire backstory, his current story, and what's going to happen to him in the future of this entire film is actually keeping you on the edge of your seat every step of the way, which is what I truly enjoyed about this movie, is the clarity that it gives you based off of one person's knowledge of what it truly means to be famous and to basically be careful what you wish for in a way. Moving on to number 9, we have Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, Jess Hutcherson's character was one of the, you know, aspirations and the main purpose for this film as a whole. His character is really what kept the movie going and gave it some clarity in the sense of like, oh shit, this is the first Five Nights at Freddy's movie, which, you know, I have different theories on what they can actually do for that, possibly, you know, change some of the outcome to the two other characters that survived or, you know, currently survived throughout that movie. But overall, this movie was very, you know, child friendly. I really do wish they made this a rated R movie instead of PG-13. I think it would have gotten such a broad audience with a R rating, but that's just me in particular. Going for my number 8, we have Saw X. This is a movie that continues the John Kramer story at a very risky state in his life where he is diagnosed with brain cancer. These brain tumors are moving super fast throughout his body within a shorter time frame than expected, until he finally discovers that he is going to be able to get this cure in a different country, realizing that that isn't the case at all. This movie really brought me back to the sense of who John Kramer truly is, what his motives are for actually killing people, and it gave the sense of like brutality and a lot of sense of revenge. Less of like a psychopath, more of like a revenge story. We have Cobweb. This psychological thriller honestly just really took me into a perspective of being a little caught off guard with what they can do with a family in jeopardy to the side of them being in one location. Now, I heard a lot of mixed reviews about this movie, but personally, I just love the way this movie was shot. The way that the story elevates the humanity of what's actually happening to this couple as well as to the child in this movie. So there are some of the best psychological dialogue in this movie that really just caught me off guard. And, you know, if a script is written well and executed decently on the screen, you know, that's just enough for me to be like, oh yeah, like this is a really good film. I think they truly took their time and it meant a lot to the subject as a whole. Moving on to the next one, we have No One Will Save You. This movie is kind of bringing you back to the whole silent day age, but instead of that, you had one of the best sound designs that I've actually heard this year, considering the fact that this movie was completely no dialogue and more reliant on the action as well as what the characters' development stages are going through, depending on the sound for that particular scene as well. Overall, the creature in this was really cool. Aliens were expected for this kind of movie, considering the fact that we all kind of knew what was coming in the first place. I didn't like that they actually showed the creatures in this. I wish they would have kept that more of like under the radar until the very end of the movie. I like the build up towards revealing creatures like that. Moving on, we have There's Something Wrong with the Children. While taking a weekend-long trip, two longtime friends and their two young children soon suspect something is wrong as the ongoing couples and children discover a mystery tunnel within the woods of where they are on vacation at. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the acting in this was a little bit but the idea behind it was really psychological and cool. This movie was kind of like Children of the Corn and The Descent kind of mashed into one, except, you know, take out the monsters, but continue that vibe of The Descent, you know what I mean? I think it really definitely makes up for the opportunity of what's, you know, happening between a couple in their most, you know, terrible time, as well as suffering through mental illness and some breakage that is kind of, you know, escalated a little bit in this movie, and they kind of hint at, you know, those little parts of it. Moving on, we have Evil Dead Rise. This film actually caught me off guard completely. I really enjoyed the atmosphere of what it was to kind of go back into the Sam Raimi universe of Evil Dead. Evil Dead in general is one of my favorite movies of all time. That would be next to Scream and Saw, but this one in particular was just actually, you know, moving the process along a lot faster to the point where it's like, oh shit, these guys are not even, they're not going to come out of this alive. And of course, going into my next one, we have Scream 6. Of course, you know, Scream 6 being one of the most anticipated films for me, at least myself, this year. Radio Silence did a fantastic job making this film, but they also left out a lot of different key points to it that I just didn't like. But of course, you know, to be included in this list, I have to put it at the very top. And that's only because I really love Scream, and I just love the idea of them being in a New York setting. Just really completing the overall story arc of Sam and Tara, who will sadly not be making it back into Scream 7, so hopefully the new characters that they will have within that movie will just make it just as good as they did the last two. Moving on, we have Talk to Me. The Philippa brothers actually did a fantastic job with this movie. I couldn't have asked for a more elevated A24 film that just felt unique and, you know, different compared to all the other films that have come out in the past for A24. But Talk to Me is just one of those movies that you just feel that grief consistently with the main character. She is struggling with the death of her mother, as well as trying to fit in with a group of friends who don't necessarily like her. Talk to Me 2 is in the works, and hopefully we can get that released here within 2024 or 2025, but I'm extremely excited to see what they actually do with that next film. And before we get into our number one, guys, I just want to say thank you so much for 200 subscribers on this YouTube channel. We are getting there super quickly, and I'm extremely excited to start really building this community, and of course making this a home for everybody to come and just enjoy fucking horror movies. Of course, the main subject is slasher movies for this channel, so if you guys haven't already, click that like button right there at the bottom of the screen, as well as turn your notification bell buttons on and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. But guys, moving into my number one, that would be Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving being one of the slasher films of 2023 that people just really enjoyed, and it gave us a different perspective of what they can still do with slasher film. But overall, you have 4 teenagers in Plymouth, Massachusetts that go through a rampage during the Black Friday sale. They end up being hunted down a year later by a psychopath wearing the John Carver mask, wanting to get revenge on the students. This movie is really exciting, thrilling, and joyful, and I just overall enjoyed the atmosphere of there being a new slasher character, a new face to the horror genre that we can kind of add in there. Taking a year off to write a new slasher film is definitely the greatest idea that I've ever heard anybody say in Hollywood right now, and that's not feeling like they have to rush anything out, that people really much enjoyed the first film and they just want to see a second one. But you know, take your time on it and do something right that's going to fit into the genre. But guys, that is all I have for you today. That is my top 10 movies of 2023, but these are the movies that really stood out to me this year that I really felt like, you know, deserved to be on this list. Here are a few different honorable mentions for you right here, so you guys can check that out and see if you want to check those movies if you haven't seen it already. Leave your thoughts and comments down below. Subscribe to the Lemon Nation if you haven't already. Like this video as well as share this with your friends and family, because guys, 200 subs, let's get to 300 by next week. I guarantee we can do it. You know what? We're gonna aim higher than that. 500. I want 500 subscribers by next month, which is literally in a few days. And of course, never fucking forget, the lemons fly.